Hello, everyone. Welcome to VMworld 2021, VMware Site Recovery Manager and Data Center Migration Disaster Recovery Lab, HOL 2205-01. Today's agenda is we'll do quick introductions, then we'll go over how we've constructed the lab, quickly touch on the lab experience, and then we'll do the guided workshop where you can ask all the questions. I want to introduce myself. My name is Monica Martz. I'm a staff technical account manager located in Tampa, Florida. I've been with VMware for 4 years, and I've been supporting the hands-on lab for 4 years. I'm a mom of a 5-year-old, so keeping very busy. I do like to run, read, and spend time with my family. And you can find me on Twitter.
And hi, my name is Benji Scoggins. I'm a staff solutions engineer based out of Dallas, Texas. So I've been at VMware for 9 years, and I've been supporting the hands-on labs for 6 of those years. I'm a huge football fan. I love Texas A&M and the Dallas Cowboys. You know, I also, when I'm not working, I love to spend my time outdoors, whether it's out on the lake or when it gets cooler, you know, out snowboarding. All right, so let's talk about constructing the lab. So our pod has been built using vSphere 7 Update 2, as well as Site Recovery Manager and vSphere Replication 8.4. We have a dual site configuration here where we have a region A and a region B, which is depicted on the right-hand side. So our region A is our primary site, and our region B is our recovery site. So you could think of this as our region A is where like all of our production workloads are running. And then our region B is going to be our recovery site. So where we would fail over to in the case of a disaster. So this is built, our lab is built as a nested environment. So what this means is we're running this in vCloud Director, and we're sharing all of those resources with all of the other labs at VMworld. As such, you know, the performance may be a little bit different than what you would see in production because we are all sharing those resources and running in nested mode. So we have multiple ESX hosts in both region A and region B, and our lab consists of multiple Linux and Windows virtual machines. We're using approximately 1 terabyte of storage, as well as 70 gigs of RAM. So one thing that's unique about our pod is we're sharing it with the Virtual Volumes Lab. So that's HOL 2205, and we would highly recommend that you take a look at that one as well. So let's talk about the lab experience, right? So our lab consists of 8 modules. They're all the way from, you know, beginner through more advanced modules. Starting with module 1, this is the introduction to Site Recovery Manager. So if you're new to Site Recovery Manager, this might be a great place for you to start. What we're going to be covering today in the guided workshop is module 3, executing a disaster recovery plan using Site Recovery Manager. You know, some of the other modules that we would love for you to come back and take a look at outside of the guided workshop are the other ones, right? Where we have integrations with vRealize Orchestrator, vRealize Operations Manager. And again, module 7 there is the virtual volumes integration. That's HOL 2205.
Thank you, Benji. So before we get started diving into SRM 8.4, let's level set and what exactly is Site Recovery Manager? Site Recovery Manager is an automation software that helps you orchestrate the recovery of your environment in case of a disaster. With SRM, you can perform non-disruptive testing. SRM does require an underlying replication technology to copy the virtual machine's data to the recovery site. You do have a choice on how you want to replicate your data, array-based or vSphere replication. In this lab, we're leveraging the vSphere replication, which SRM natively integrates with that. At each site, we will have a duplicate of our resources, so vCenter, vSphere, storage, Site Recovery Manager appliances, and the sites have to be paired And also the resources at each site have to be mapped out. This is important. Network, folders, storage policies, and resource pools all have to be mapped out between the two sites, since we do have two different vCenters involved, and we will definitely cover this in the lab. All right, so now that we know what Site Recovery Manager is, we can focus on some features and functionality. We do have some great features from previous versions that are definitely worth mentioning. In SRM 8.2, we introduced a new appliance, so no more Windows server, and we also introduced the support for encrypted VMs and encrypting replication traffic. In Site Recovery Manager 8.3, we introduced support for vVols, and in vSphere Replication 8.3, we introduced the support for vSphere Replication disk resizing, which is the ability to resize the disk of the virtual machine on the fly without affecting its replication. With the release of Site Recovery Manager 8.4, this trend of reducing risk while simplifying operations continues. And now we have a new set of features available that I would like to go over. One of the items we looked at is the ReProtect workflow. Maybe some of you might remember that in previous versions of vSphere replication, after we perform the failover or planned migration, the ReProtect workflow happens. So vSphere replication will treat this as this was the first time replication happened. It would run this checksum process to compare the disk from the source site to the target site and copy any new changes. This particular process worked well for the most part. However, it was inefficient because usually the ReProtect workflow is run immediately after a failover or migration, and not very much has changed on the VMs. So running this checksum process, especially for larger VMs, will take a long time. So it was a little inefficient. With Site Recovery Manager and vSphere Replication at 8.4, this process has been looked at and has been optimized. So now, after a planned migration, vSphere Replication automatically starts tracking those changes that occur to the recovered VMs. And when the ReProtect workflow runs, only those particular changes will be replicated to the new recovery site. So because of this, the amount it takes to ReProtect has been drastically reduced. We have seen where the time has went from hours to minutes, sometimes even seconds. I do want to note that in order for this to work, both source and target have to be at vSphere update 2. With this version, we also increased the scale. vSphere replication has supported replicating 2000 VMs per vCenter for about 5 years now, since vCenter version 6.0. Due to the performance tweaks and the optimizations that have been done to vSphere replication and vSphere, now that number has increased, and we are supporting 3000 VMs per vCenter, or the vSphere replication appliance can support 300 VMs per appliance. The vSphere appliance has also been updated and enhanced in this version. So now it's using the same VMware Standard Management Interface, also known as VAMI, just like Site Recovery Manager and vCenter. Same familiar look and feel, making it easier to locate settings and complete any management tasks. There has also been numerous enhancements to the UI, to the user interface as well. And you'll see this as we go through the lab. You'll see those enhancements. But to note, we now have the ability to see the full path and the hierarchy of the folder mappings. There's also enhancements around notifications. And for example, there's a reminder to run the ReProtect after a planned migration or failover. And again, all of this you'll be able to see in the lab. Previously, we had to do configuration mappings prior to configuring replication. Now, with this version, we have the ability to configure end-to-end protection from one view. For example, when configuring replication for a VM, we can add the network and folder mappings without going through a different view. So end-to-end configuration from one view. The recovery plan summary page has also been improved. So now it displays any warnings or errors for the vSphere replicated VMs that are part of the recovery plan, along with some details, as you can see on the screen. This makes it easier to understand what's going on in your environment and a quick view. There's no need for you to go to the history or anywhere else to see more information. Also on the recovery plan summary page, we've added functional links to those errors. So as you can see, we can see details for any errors, again, without having to open the recovery plan report. So everything in one view. We now have tighter integration with the vSphere client. So the Site Recovery Manager and vSphere interfaces now include details about the hosts, clusters, resource pool status from the vCenter, and it's also including the current state. So definitely tighter integration. To make it easier to upgrade, both Site Recovery Manager and vSphere Replication now support running different versions, N+1 and -1, at the protected or recovery site. This setup is primarily used during an upgrade process. Do keep in mind that the pair from the protected site to the recovery site will function with the features and capabilities of the older version. So in this case, we will be at vSphere Replication 8.3 until we upgrade.
Hey, great, Monica. That's a bunch of really great enhancements. So let's talk about vRealize Orchestrator. And this is covered in one of the modules in the lab as well. The integration with Site Recovery Manager, as well as vSphere Replication with vRealize Orchestrator, right? So the plugins for both Site Recovery Manager and vSphere Replication have been updated to support vRealize Orchestrator 8.4. On the Site Recovery Manager side, we've added inventory mappings per VM, have the ability to configure placeholder data stores. And on the vSphere Replication plugin, we've improved the configure replication workflow. So enabling configuration and reconfiguration of data stores per disk and storage policy per disk. So on the API side, Monica went through a lot of really great enhancements on the UI, right? So we can use the APIs to enable third-party software to control protection groups and test or initiate recovery plans. So this will be perfect if you wanted to programmatically use this without using the UI. And we've added the APIs as listed on the screen here with 8.4. All right. Well, we've also made it easier to manage Site Recovery Manager and vSphere Replication with vRealize Operations Manager. On the Site Recovery Manager side, we have the ability to see license details, errors and alarms, etc. And on the vSphere Replication side, we now have the ability to see vSphere Replication multi-point in time snapshots within vRealize Operations Manager. So some really great enhancements have been made for with this 8.4 release.
Thank you, Benji. Definitely a lot of new features and capabilities in Site Recovery Manager 8.4 and vSphere Replication 8.4. Before we move on to do the guided workshop, I do want to remind everyone to please take the survey. It only takes a couple of minutes. We do appreciate it, and we thank you for your time. And now we'll move on to the guided workshop.
We're going to go ahead and get started with the guided workshop. So once you've signed in and we've selected 2205 and started the lab, you'll be automatically signed into the console. So and what we should see on the console here in the bottom right-hand side is the lab status of ready. So this means that everything came up and we're ready to get started. So before we get started here, I want to provide just a little update on what we're looking at here on the screen. So on the left-hand side, we have our view of the console, and we have, if we grab the side of this, this will allow us to resize this for whatever best fits the monitor that you're using. On the right-hand side, Monica, did that message pop up on the screen?
No, no message.
All right, I need to do not disturb. Just like text message just
Yeah, no message came. You might want to extend. Do you want to extend your time so you don't have to do it in the middle? Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get started.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So now we're going to get started with the guided workshop portion of this. So once you've signed in and you've selected lab 2205 and started the lab, you'll automatically be signed into the console. And so once you get signed in, we want to take note of the bottom right corner of the screen. We can see the lab. We want to make sure we're on 2205. And we want to look at the last line and make sure that the lab status shows ready. That is our indication that the lab is completely up and we are ready to get started on the lab. So let's take a little look at the screen here and see what we have. So on the left-hand side, we have the console. If we go over to the right, we have the ability to resize by clicking and holding the mouse. We can resize the console to whatever best fits your screen. On the left-hand side, we have the manual, and we can do the same thing. So feel free to drag those to whatever looks the best for you visually. So inside of the manual here on the right-hand side, we have a couple of options. So we can advance the pages using the buttons here, the blue buttons to go forward and backwards. We also have the ability to go to the table of contents. So if everyone can go to the table of contents, we're going to be covering Module 3, executing a disaster recovery plan using VMware Site Recovery Manager. So once we've gone ahead and selected that, we can go ahead and close the table of contents. So this is where we're going to begin the actual guided workshop portion here. And so what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be protecting virtual machines using Site Recovery Manager. We're going to create a virtual machine recovery plan. We're going to test that recovery plan. After that, we're going to create a site-wide recovery plan. And then the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the reporting that's available in Site Recovery Manager. I would like to note that this lab, this recording was done while the lab was in development. So what you see on the screen may be slightly different, but it's going to function the same. So, all right. If anyone has any questions during this, feel free to use the chat or come off of mute and we can ask them out loud. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close my manual. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to launch Google Chrome. And we're going to sign into Virtual Center. So we're going to select Region A and go ahead and select that link. So we get this notification here for the VMware CIP launcher. So let's go ahead and select the check mark and say Open VMware CIP launcher. So the username and password should automatically be filled in for you, and we can go ahead and log in. So once we get logged in, we're going to be logged into region A. If you remember back to the introduction for the slides, the introductory slides, this is our primary site. And this is, in kind of the real world, this would be where you're running your production workloads. So this may take just a minute for everything to completely get filled. Okay, and if you do see any alarms here, we do have a couple. You can ignore those, and this is because we're running in that nested mode and we're sharing all these resources with other users. So the first thing we're going to do here in the lab is let's take a look and see what we have for virtual machines. So we have these 3 virtual machines for the accounting department, and this is a 3-tier application. So we've got the application, the database, and the web tier. So those are the 3 virtual machines that we're going to be working with here in this first module. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open Site Recovery Manager. So to do that, we're going to come up and select Menu. And then if we scroll down towards the bottom, we'll go ahead and click Site Recovery. So we can wait for this to go ahead and turn to OK, but because we are on a timeline here, we're going to go ahead and click Open Site Recovery. So when the site recovery page opens, we get a view at a glance on how this is configured. So again, if we think back to our slides, we had our region A side and we had our region B side. So we do have 2 protection groups already, and we have some replications already configured. So we're going to go ahead and click on View Details here. So in our lab, we do not have an enhanced link mode set up. And due to this, we need to go ahead and authenticate to the B side. The username and password should automatically be filled for you, and we can go ahead and click Login. Okay, so once we get signed in here, we can see the Site Recovery Manager. So on the left-hand side, we can see our site pair, and this is how we would come in and configure perhaps those mappings that Monica spoke about earlier, whether they're the network, folder, or resource mappings. What we're going to look at first here is the protection groups. Oh, hey, Monica, we just had a question come in. Can you give everyone a refresher on what a protection group is?
Sure, Benji. So a protection group is a group of VMs that you want to be protected together. You can think of a protection group, a collection of VMs that support an application or a collection of VMs that support a service. So this protection group will be failed over and failed back as a unit. So if you have 3+ VMs that you want to be failed together, you put them in a protection group.
Okay, great. Thanks, Monica. So for this module, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our accounting virtual machines, and we're going to create an accounting protection group. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and click New, and we're going to provide a name. So we can go ahead and provide a description. This is optional. Okay, and then we're going to select our direction. We're going to leave this at default, and we're going to go ahead and click Next here. So the next page that we're looking at is what type of protection group do we want to create? So in this case, we're going to do individual VMs because we're using vSphere replication. Again, there was another module we talked about earlier, the 2205-02 with virtual volumes. So we do have multiple options. In this case, we're going to choose individual VMs and go ahead and click Next. So this is where we choose what virtual machines we want to be added to our protection group. In our case, we want our 3 accounting virtual machines. So we're going to go ahead and select the 3 of those VMs, and we're going to go ahead and click Next. So right now, we do not have a recovery plan created for the accounting virtual machines. We're going to do that in a later module. So if one already existed, we could go ahead and add it to recovery plan. But for now, we're going to choose the third option. Do not add to a recovery plan. So we get a warning saying, hey, this protection group can't be recovered unless we add it to a recovery plan, but this is to be expected. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And the last thing that we see here is, our review screen, so we can review the settings that we've chosen. We're going to go ahead and click finish. And at this point, the new protection group should be created. So we can see down here in the bottom right, we got a pop-up saying, hey, this protection group, accounting protection group was created. We also, with 8.4, we have these notifications as well. And again, we can see that this was created successfully. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open another tab. And let's sign into our Region B vSphere environment. So within the new tab, go ahead and select Region B and go ahead and choose the virtual appliance link. And we can go ahead on our VMware CIP launcher, go ahead and select Always Allow and Open. And again, our credentials should be saved here or automatically filled in. We can go ahead and log in at this point. So we created the protection group. So what's going to happen now? Placeholder virtual machines are going to be created in our recovery site, which is the B site. So we're going to sign in here to verify that our placeholder virtual machines have been created. So once we get in, we're going to go ahead and switch to the virtual machine and template view. And we can go ahead and expand region B01 and the protected apps. So we can look and we see our accounting. Oh, excuse me. Not the protected. We're going to look at recovered because these are in the recovered side. If we had reversed our direction, then we would see them under protected. So again, expand recovered apps. And if we look at the accounting virtual machines, we can see we have 3 VM placeholder virtual machines that have been created and that are not powered on. You can see there's a little bit different icon than you may be used to, and this denotes that they're placeholder virtual machines.
Yeah, Benji, and a placeholder virtual machine is a subset of the virtual machine files. So Site Recovery Manager uses this subset of files to register the VM with the vCenter. So it's like the name says, it's just a placeholder for the individual VMs.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Monica. All right, so now we can go back to our Site Recovery Manager tab. So we created our protection group, right? And again, we saw that warning that we couldn't perform recovery because it wasn't part of a recovery plan. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to create a recovery plan. So within Site Recovery Manager, let's go ahead and select recovery plans. So we can see that we have two recovery plans already created. We're going to create a third one here for our accounting virtual machines. So let's go ahead and select new. And we, just like on the protection group, we need to give it a name. So we're going to call this accounting recovery plan. And then go ahead and just give it a description. Again, the description is optional. And we need to provide the direction. Again, we're going to take the default here. So the next screen that we have here is the protection groups. So we need to select our accounting protection group that we created previously here. So we can add those machines to that. So don't select all of them like I did, just select the top one. So once you've done that, we can go ahead and click next. Okay, so the next screen that we see is the test networks. So Monica covered this a little bit in the PowerPoints as well. So when you initially set up Site Recovery Manager, we create these mappings, and we've already done that for you here in the lab. So we've associated VLAN 1 from site A to VLAN 2 in site B. And so what we can see here is we're using site level mapping for this. If that mapping hadn't been done already, you could do this straight from this screen. There would be another option here. But because we've already done that for you here in the lab, we can take the defaults and go ahead and click next. So the last thing that we see here is our reviews. We're going to review the settings for our recovery plan. So we're going to just go ahead and hit finish here. And once this is completed, just like when we did the protection group, we can see that we get our notifications here that the recovery plan was created, as well as the notification as well. So now that we've created this recovery plan, let's go ahead and double click on or single click on the accounting recovery plan and take a look in more detail on what's going on here. So we can see a summary of what is going on, what is the protected and what is the recovery site. We can see the status. This plan is ready. It's ready for us to do a test or to actually do a recovery. So, and we can see we have 3 virtual machines that are ready for recovery. And we also have several different steps here that we can take a look at further details on the recovery plan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test our recovery plan. So, and really the test, it's beneficial so that we can make sure that our recovery plan works as we expect it to. So, and part of this is non-disruptive. Right, so your actual production VMs that are protected in the protection group will continue to run without interruption while we test this to verify that it works as expected, so that if we were to really do this in a disaster event, it would work as expected. So let's go ahead and click test. So on this, we want to uncheck the replicate recent changes to the recovery site. Again, this is if there are any changes that occurred on the actual running virtual machines. As part of the test, we are not going to replicate that first and do the test just because of time constraints here within the workshop. So once we've unchecked that box, we're going to go ahead and click next. We're going to review our settings again, and we're going to go ahead and click finish. So we can see here from the summary that this is in progress. If we click on the recovery steps, we can get some more detail on what is going on this. The first option here, synchronized storage, it is skipped, and that's due to us unchecking the box there when we chose to do the test. And we can see that it's gone through and performed steps 2, 4, 5, and at this point, it is in the process of powering on these virtual machines at our B site as part of this test.
Yeah, so that's what a recovery plan is. It pretty much controls every step of the recovery process. It controls the order on which the VMs come up and are recovered. And you can also do IP addresses changes in here.
No, that's some really great detail, Monica. In one of the later modules, we actually take a look at that, right? Changing IP addresses as we fail over from our primary to our recovery site, as well as, maybe in this case, the database server needs to come up first. We have the ability to set the recovery plan up in such a way that the database server will come up first. And once that is up, it will power on the web server. And once that is up, it will power on the application server. And those are covered in some other modules that we would highly recommend that you take a look at those.
That's right, Benji. We covered those in the advanced topics in module 4.
All right. So these virtual machines were powered on. If we scroll back up, we can see that our test was complete. The test was successful here. So, You might have missed it. We did get a notification as well. And also from within the notification bell, we can see that this completed as well. So now that we've tested and we've ensured that everything works as we expect it to, we need to do a cleanup. And Monica, can you maybe provide a little bit more details on what the cleanup is?
Yes, of course. So the cleanup is reversing the replication and protection, pretty much getting you ready to fail over again if you need to do it. So it cleans up all these resources, and then we do a ReProtect, and it gets us ready to fail over again when we need to.
All right, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and select cleanup, and we've got our confirmation options here. And as Monica said, right, running a cleanup operation on the plan is going to remove our test environment and reset the plan to a ready state so that we could execute that in the event of a real event. So we're going to go ahead and select next, review our settings, and go ahead and click finish. Okay. So, and as you can see, this happened really quickly here. We've got our little pop-up windows as well as in the notification. So you should see that this is in a ready state now, which means, just like it says, we've removed our test environment and it's ready for test or recovery again. So what we've shown to this point is we created a protection group with the accounting virtual machines. We added that protection group into a recovery plan, and then we tested it out and made sure it functioned as expected. So that was great for the accounting department. We can see we also have sales, and you may have other virtual machines in your environment that we need to recover as well. So the next thing that we're going to do is create a site-wide recovery plan. And this would be in the event of, your entire primary site went down. We have the ability to, within a recovery plan, have all of these virtual machines and protection groups, have them be recovered to the other site. So for us to do that, we're going to go ahead and click on recovery plans over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to click new. So this should be a familiar screen to you guys. So we're going to go ahead and provide it a name. So because we're doing the entire site, we're going to call it the site-wide recovery plan. This is a really original name. I'm going to give Monica credit for creating that. All right, so we can go ahead and give this a description as well. Again, the description is optional. And we want to have our direction. So once we've done that, we can go ahead and click next. And so we're going to select all of our protection groups this time instead of just the accounting protection group. So once we've chosen all of our protection groups there, we're going to go ahead and click next. And again, we see our test networks. Because we've already done the pairing for you, we're just going to take the defaults. We're going to review the settings that we've chose here and go ahead and hit finish. So once our recovery plan has been created, we get our normal pop-up and the notification as well. So the next thing that we want to do is let's take a look at the recovery plan itself. So let's go ahead and select the site-wide recovery plan. And so once we have this, we can go ahead and test this out, just like we did with the accounting recovery plan, except for in this case, it's going to do the accounting, sales, and introduction recovery plans that were already created. So let's go ahead and click test here. So just like we did previously, we're going to uncheck the box to replicate recent changes. So we're going to go ahead and say next. We're going to review our settings and click finish. So as we can see, this is in progress. But let's take a look at recovery steps again, and this will give us a more detailed view on what's going on with our recovery plan. So again, we opted to skip the storage. We're creating snapshots of those virtual machines. And then it's going to power on these virtual machines. So previously, we only saw the 3 accounting VMs because we were just testing out the accounting recovery plan. In this case, we see all of the VMs because we're doing it at a site-wide level. So guys, this thing may take a couple of minutes for it to complete. And we can see here an overall progress. So while this is going on, let's go ahead and switch back to our tab where we were signed into our B side. And let's go ahead and take a look here. You should already be signed in, but if not, go ahead and sign in again. If you have any problems getting signed in, just let us know. So we're going to take a look here. You should be in the VMs and templates view, and we're going to click on Recovered Apps, region B01. So we're going to select the VMs tab here, and we can see all of our virtual machines are powered on. So this did exactly as we expected for our test. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is still in the process of being completed. It's waiting for VMware tools to be up and available, and so that it responds as successful. We can see that 4 of them have, and the sales ones are still running. They take just a little bit longer. Again, this is because we're using a nested environment.
And being able to run this test, Benji, right? It's huge. Being able to validate your DR and go over all the recovery steps, see what works and doesn't work. It's definitely a benefit.
Yeah, it absolutely is, right? And because it is non-disruptive, as we mentioned before, this really allows you to test this out, making sure that it works as you expect it to, right? We had mentioned before, perhaps one of the virtual machines in your protection group needs to come up before the other one. This is a really great opportunity to get this dialed in so that in the case you really need to run it and not in a test, you can feel confident that it's going to work and be successful. And as you can see here on the screen, this finished, right? We can see that by the test complete here. So just like we did before, we want to go ahead and we want to do the cleanup, right? And again, let's just get this back into a known good state in case there was a disaster. We would have the ability to go ahead and perform this. So let's go ahead and select cleanup. We're going to go ahead and choose next here on our confirmation options, and we're going to click finish on our review. So and this is going to go through and perform the cleanup. So just a recap of what we've done so far. So the first thing we did is we created that protection group, and we did that for the accounting virtual machines. So once we create our protection group, our accounting protection group, we created an accounting recovery plan. We added our accounting protection group to the accounting recovery plan, tested that out, and it was successful with those 3 accounting virtual machines. And once we completed that, we created a new recovery plan that was for the entire site. We went ahead and tested that out, and we were successful with that. And we did a cleanup on that. So we've reverted it back to our kind of pristine state so that we can do this if we needed to. All right, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at audit reporting in Site Recovery Manager. So we're going to go ahead and we've got our recovery plans selected here from within the title page. Let's go ahead and click on Accounting Recovery Plan. So within the Accounting Recovery Plan, let's click on History. So we can see what has been done with this recovery plan. So, and we can see the very first thing we did is we did the test on this to make sure it worked as expected. And then the next thing we did is we cleaned it up. So let's go ahead and select test. And then we can go ahead and choose export report. So once we select export report, we have an option of what kind of file do we want to export this to? HTML, XML, comma separated, etc. And we have the option to either download or open in a new tab. So let's go ahead and open in a new tab. And so this provides us, this would be a great way for you to export the results of your tests and share them with other members of the organization. So when we can see, this is what happened as part of that. When we looked at the detail on the recovery steps, if you remember back, we skipped the synchronization storage. We can see that here as well. And we all have the timestamps of when these steps started and completed, as well as success and failure. So that is what we wanted to cover today with module 3. Again, we have a bunch of really great other modules that we'd love for you to take a look at. We're going to be around if there are questions. We're happy to stay and answer those. We want to make sure that, if you could fill out the surveys, that would be great. We really enjoy getting the feedback. We enjoy both of us enjoy working on the labs and getting to work with you and meet our customers. Right. So if you can provide us feedback for anything that we could do better in the future, we would certainly appreciate it. Monica, you have anything else?
I just want to thank everyone for their time and hope to see you at VMworld 2022 in person.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.